Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People story. It had been yet another long day. As I sank into my chair on the back patio, I let out a heavy sigh. All I wanted was to sit back and relax in the peace and quiet of the evening. But it seemed like peace was a luxury I hadn't experienced in a while, not since Karen moved in next door. My neighbor Karen had always been a handful, but lately she had been getting more disturbed by the day. Any little thing seemed to set her off on a tirade. The problem was, more often than not, I found myself as the target of her insults and accusations. Like that time she claimed my kids were deliberately kicking balls over the fence to damage her prized rose bushes, as if a bunch of rowdy kids would be that precise. No, it had become clear Karen was looking for conflict wherever she could find it, and it was wearing me down. My doctor had even noted the added stress wasn't good for my heart condition. That's why he prescribed the new monitor, to keep a closer eye on things. I hoped having the data would put my mind at ease. I had just gotten comfortable when the back gate swung open with a bang. There stood Karen, eyes blazing as usual. "I need to speak with you right now," she demanded. With a sigh, I pulled myself up. "What is it this time, Karen?" She marched right over and pointed an accusing finger at the small monitor clipped to my belt. "What do you think you're doing with that thing on my property?" I glanced down, confused. As far as I could tell, both my feet were still firmly planted in my own yard. "It's not on your property, and it's my heart monitor from the doctor." "That's a lie," Karen spat. "I saw it rolling across the line when I was doing some gardening, which means it's mine now." She lunged forward and yanked it off my belt before I could react. "Hey, give that back!" I cried, shocked by her audacity. "It's a medical device, you can't just take it." But Karen was already turning away, monitor in hand. "I'm calling the police. We'll let them settle this trespassing issue." I felt panic rising in my chest at the thought of being without the monitor. Lord knows what might happen to my heart if something went wrong without the doctors monitoring it closely. I had to get it back one way or another. Thinking fast, I lunged after Karen and grabbed her arm. "Please, I need that." We struggled for a moment before the monitor flew from her grasp. In an instant, we both darted after it, but Karen was quicker, snatching it up first with a gleeful cackle. "Now you've assaulted me!" she shrieked. "The police are coming and I'm suing you for everything you've got." She whipped out her phone to make the call, still clutching the monitor tightly. At that moment, 2 police cruisers pulled up, lights flashing. Thank God the neighbors must have called about the commotion. I rushed over to explain what was going on as Karen ranted hysterically in the background. The officers listened patiently before turning to her. "Ma'am, we've had several complaints about you harassing the neighbors. Now hand over the property before we have to arrest you for theft." Their stern words gave Karen pause. With a scowl, she relinquished the monitor. One of the officers handed it back to me. "You let us know if she causes any more trouble. We'll be watching her closely." They ushered Karen inside as I breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed peace had finally returned, at least for now. But I had a feeling this wouldn't be the last of Karen's shenanigans. Only time would tell what she might dream up next. The next one is a pro-revenge story. Obligatory backstory. Many of you have probably heard of families with strong hierarchical structures, normally with the eldest in the family having the most influence. My family is one of them, except that my parents are drug addicts deadbeats, so my eldest sister, 31F, our entitled mother, raised all 5 of us. She is the boss of the family. She says, "Jump." Everyone says, "How high?" The focal point of the story is my youngest sister, 20F, who I'll call Little Sister. Most of us have a handful or at least a couple of memories with our mother before she lost her crap, except for Little Sister. For her, entitled mother is the only mom she ever had, and entitled mother knows how to take advantage of that. All of us noped out of our parents' house as soon as we turned 18, except for entitled mother who waited until Little Sister and our brother were raised, and in their mid-teens to move across the country, and soon found jobs and accommodations for all of us to move to the same state as her. Little Sister begged for years to move in with her, but entitled mother always denied, saying that somebody had to take care of our father, and because she and her new husband needed privacy and space. That was until entitled mother got pregnant. She got Little Sister to move in with her, and she has been there for the past 2.5 years, helping out. Now to the story. Entitled father's family wanted to visit for a couple of weeks, so Little Sister had to stay with me for that time so that they could use her room. It's worth noting that entitled mother didn't ask or let me know about it, she just dropped Little Sister off. One day she saw me studying for my master's degree and said something about how she always wanted to go to college, and this is how it went. Me. So why don't you? Little sister. Oh, I talked to entitled mother about it, but she said not everyone is the college type, and that I wouldn't have time to work, study, and take care of niece at the same time. And it's expensive. Me. Most people work and study at the same time, and she can put niece in a daycare. I'm sure it wouldn't be that much more expensive than what she's already paying you. Little sister. She doesn't pay me. She already gives me food and shelter, and if I need money, I just take a shift at work. And this is how I learned my sister was not only babysitting, but also cleaning the whole house for free every day. She was even only working 8 hours a week at her normal job because she was too busy taking care of our niece. Long story short, it took me weeks to convince her to apply to community college, and then more weeks on the actual process. But she finally got confirmation she would start in September. All of that behind entitled mother's back. She was planning on telling everyone the next time we all got together, which would be Independence Day. But before that could happen, entitled mother got everyone together at her house to announce that she was pregnant. Little sister starts crying because now she wouldn't be allowed to go to college. Entitled mother gets deeply hurt and offended that she planned this behind her back. I butt in, our other siblings butt in. It's just generally a mess. How could you do this to me? Who's going to take care of the babies? I can't believe you'd be so selfish. If you like OP so much, go stay with her. These were all some of the things she said. She kicked me and little sister out, who stayed with me until they made peace. Both of our siblings reached out, one to say that I should have minded my own business, and the other to tell me she was on my side but wouldn't say anything. After that, little sister moved back with her and didn't go to college, but they agreed she would get paid $6 an hour and be allowed to take more shifts at her job until the baby is born, and then go to real college after the child turns 1 year old. I know it's messed up, but all of them, especially little sister, worship entitled mother like a god. I waited a year to act on my revenge, making sure my sister had saved enough money to live on her own. The revenge. First, what I did was research the legality of paying a homeless person in food and shelter. In the US, depending on the state, it's legal as long as you do not cross the line and the person becomes an employee. For example, you can give the person a list of tasks you want done. However, you cannot say that it has to be done in a certain amount of time. You also cannot request someone to be somewhere at a certain time. You can ask but not demand on the time. It comes down to a choice of words. Also, you have to comply with rental laws. If your local laws say that you must give 30 days notice to a tenant, then you must give 30 days notice to this person as well. I had proof of all of the situations, several screenshots of entitled mother admitting not paying and not allowing little sister to move out get a job, and also admitting to kicking her out whenever she wanted. All this technicality seemed worthless since no one would sue her. But that didn't matter. I just wanted to make sure that her boss knew that if she were to be sued, it would be a sure case. Entitled mother works for a civil rights attorney's office, so discovering she has a literal modern-day slave would probably get her fired. I could have just created a burner email and sent it all to her boss, but then they would explain to her why she's getting fired, and that would get me and little sister in trouble. So what did I do? Entitled mother was always complaining about one of the bosses at her job that hated her and had tried to get her fired for ages. I went to the company site, found the woman. Thankfully, she was the only Ashley that worked there. Found her on Instagram and Facebook. There, she had a post tagging her yoga studio. Went to said studio and created my membership. It took a few weeks of trial and error trying to find exactly what class Ashley belonged to, but I finally found her. Then I went to yoga class every Tuesday and Friday at 8 a.m. for months, slowly building a friendship with her. Around 3 months in, she asked to follow me on Instagram, and I was already prepared for this scenario, having deleted the few pictures I had with entitled mother. After 9 months, when our friendship was a strong baby, I brought up the crazy coincidence that I found out she worked with entitled mother. Before things could get awkward, I said, "It's ironic that she works for civil rights considering, everything." That got Ashley's attention. I told her everything, showed every screenshot. I could practically see her eyes shining. They had their own history that is not important to the story. All you need to know is, entitled mother is an idiot. Ashley wants revenge as much as I do. I told her about little sister's situation and why entitled mother couldn't ever know about this. This is why being friends with Ashley was so important. If I had just sent them the proof and explained the situation, they would have probably just ignored it. since this was a very legitimate reason to fire her, and they wouldn't risk firing her for a minor mistake and maybe getting sued. I sent her the files with her promise that Entitled Mother wouldn't hear about this, but she needed it to convince the other owner, who was the reason why she wasn't fired yet. 2 months later, Entitled Mother was fired for minor mistakes, lateness, and general bad productivity. Small victory, sure, but I loved coming to visit her during the 4 months she was unemployed. She was looking so tired and miserable all the time since she had no money to pay for a babysitter, and little sister is away at college, so she actually had to take care of her children. The next one is a petty revenge story. My husband and I bought a franchise. At the time, I was working at another job while my husband was taking over the business, and no one in the network had met me yet. On the day before the takeover, my husband, the previous owner, and the company's area manager were doing a final check and stock take in the store during business hours. I was meeting them in the store after work to go over the finals with them and meet everyone, as I would eventually be heavily involved in the business, payroll, accounting, and HR side of things. I should add something important. Taking over the business meant that we could choose to keep the current staff on, or we could choose not to and hire new people without any legal repercussion. As of the moment I walked up to the store for the first time, all of the current staff had been told by the previous owner that their jobs were safe. We didn't want to fire everyone who knew the job to replace them with unskilled people. That's just silly. All they had to do was meet us and obviously make a good impression. I walked up to the front counter, it is a retail food business, and smiled and greeted the sales team member Karen. I later found out Karen had been working in this particular store for about 6 years, and had been with the brand for approximately 9 years. I was met with a glare and a sour look, and would you believe it? No greeting, not even a basic hello. Now Karen didn't know who I was, and for all she knew, I was a regular customer coming to buy a product. I was immediately annoyed at this, but still with a smile on my face, I introduced myself. Nothing. She continued to glare, didn't introduce herself, or even attempt to crack a smile. She still didn't say hello. I was now extremely annoyed at how rude Karen was, and working in customer service for years myself and having taught it as a profession, and being, a decent human, I was shocked that someone with her demeanor still even had a job. I then quite abruptly told her to let me in because I was one of the new owners and was expected to be at the meeting in the store. With a huff, she opened the door and let me through. She still couldn't even crack a smile or be remotely polite to me, which pissed me off even more because she was expecting to be kept on with us. After a few minutes talking to my husband, the area manager, and the previous owner, I told them that that level of service wouldn't be accepted in this store and that we would definitely not be keeping her on. My husband agreed 100% and it was decided. On my way out and as the store was closing, I said goodbye to good old Karen and casually dropped in, "It was lovely to meet you today, Karen. However, we won't be keeping you on at this store, so please ensure you take all of your belongings when you leave. Have a great night." Karen was visibly shocked, and the joy of watching her face drop, realizing she no longer had a job, was blissful. My husband stayed until after closing to make sure Karen didn't do or take anything she shouldn't, and I skipped merrily back to my car. Enjoy unemployment, Karen. The next one is a malicious compliance story. I work at a hotel. I'm on the graveyard shift, and we have a continental breakfast from 6, 9, and my shift ends at 7, so I'm in charge of setting up the breakfast. It's not a big deal. It's a smallish hotel and a small breakfast, but we do have waffles and a couple of waffle makers. Basically, guests come in, they get their batter out of a dispenser and make their waffles, so they're fresh and hot. We have 2 seasons where I live, winter and construction season, and we get work crews that stay at the hotel on the boss's dime, and then go out for whatever job they're working on. We very frequently get this one crew of guys. They're great guys, they're polite, and they don't leave the breakfast room a mess, but their shifts start super early in the morning. We also get hunters who are in and out before 6, so I usually have everything set up by 5:30 for them. I say usually because I'm only human. Sometimes I'm running late, it happens, but I'm never more than 5 minutes after 6. The workers and the hunters are super chill about it, they get it, and they don't complain about waiting a couple of extra minutes. I also feel the need to add that the foreman is amongst them, so he's eating when they are. So one day I'm running a little late. I got caught up with what I was doing and kinda lost track of time, so I was rushing to get everything set up while the guys are patiently waiting in the lobby. In enters Karen, who sees the time, sees the breakfast isn't ready, and decides to yell at me for it, saying that the sign says breakfast is from 9, and should be started exactly at 6. I tried to keep working while talking to her so I could get the breakfast ready, but she decided that was rude, so I had to stop what I was doing and stand there with her yelling at me until she ran out of breath and I could finish setting up. Karen complains to the manager. I get a verbal warning that I have to have breakfast open by 6, as I was about 15 minutes behind because Karen was yelling at me when I would have been less than 4 if she'd let me finish. Well, Karen was a stayover, and she was in the next day before 6. The manager refunded part of her stay under guest satisfaction, and I think she was hoping to find me doing something wrong so she could get another refund, but I was on my game and had everything set up by 5:30 like usual. She came in before the workers and saw me sitting at the front desk and sneered about me being lazy when I should be setting up breakfast. I told her the breakfast was already ready to go as the construction workers are entering, but I stand and walk over to block the doorway to the breakfast room and told them that I couldn't let them in because the manager said I had to start the breakfast at exactly 6 o'clock, so I couldn't let them back until then. And as I'm saying this, I'm looking directly at Karen. Slowly heads turn, and Karen goes red and mutters something about coming back later and leaves, so I let the guys back. They said it was funny, and like I said, the workers have had to wait a little after 6 before with no problem, and the foreman was there. To be clear, if I thought this stunt was going to cost them their breakfast, I never would have done it, but I knew that wasn't going to be a problem. I didn't see Karen again, so either she didn't come back, or she returned after I left, but either way I didn't hear another word from the manager about it. You want your breakfast at 6? You're going to get your breakfast at 6. The next one is an entitled people story, so I'm financially okay. One of my closest friends' backyard to 13 KSF house has a tennis court rich. We went to college together and have been incredibly close friends for 20 years. His kids call me their uncle. I was in his wedding party. I spoke at their wedding. I can go on. It's important to note we were also broke together. As broke as 2 kids at a private university not taking out loans could be. Mom and Dad paid the tuition. Beer money was on us. Here's the issue. He took up golf. I've played for years and will play at the local courses and spend up on bucket list trips. Pebble Beach, Streamsong, Ireland. He joined a nice country club. Whenever I text him to play golf, he always says, meet at my club. After 5 or 6 times, I told him that between guest fees, $200, and caddies, $120, it's a little pricey and to let me find a nice course to play that doesn't hit me so hard. We try to play 2 times a week, so you can see how that adds up. For reference, I would end up at a course that's about $70. His issue is he can't always make a tee time. His club is first come first serve, which works given his profession. He just can't always make it to tee times. So it's basically his club or bust. He also laughed at me and said, don't be weird. I always offered. He just picks up the tab every time, never complains. I gave up offering to pay because it felt like Groundhog Day. He asked me for little favors, I think to make me feel good, like, hey, on your way to the house, can you pick up takeout? Or grab the kids from practice, etc. Now, though, whenever I text him to play golf, it's become a given. His club, his treat. I found out from his wife he was going club shopping, so I got him a gift card for a putter. A Scotty Cameron is $500, so it did cost me a real number by my standards. The math isn't even close to fair. I feel like I am inviting myself to his club, his treat, when all I want is to kick it with my buddy. I would play the $12 Muni with him. Is this sense of entitlement in my head? How do I make sure he never ever gets that impression? If y'all were him, would you wonder why I stopped offering to pay? It's literally because this has gotten us nowhere and having the same convo over and over is annoying. I am a neurotic mess in general. Is this something to add to it? Update. I went to his house to hang out yesterday, and after a few hours, I was leaving to go home, and he mentioned playing golf. So I said, hey, can we talk about that? I opened with something like, dude, I would play the dog track with you. Any chance we can go somewhere else? He asked why, and I said something like, you keep spending $500 to hang out with me, and it eats at me. The mood shifted to serious, and we chatted. A long trip down memory lane. A lot of remember when. He hit on a couple of things that were touched on here. 1, relationship with his kids. After golf, we almost always do something with the kids. If we play 45 minutes from his house and not 10 minutes, we can't do that anymore. 2, a long history that didn't keep score. 3, the general, it's our money, we'll spend it how we want attitude he and his wife have earned. He also understood that this isn't like before where who pays doesn't matter because it would always work out. The income disparity here is pretty permanent. and the rest of our lives can't be this way. He said he gets it, but he won't budge on the golf because convenience for him is the only way he can even play. Again, that he can't ever commit to a precise time to show up is a fact, not an excuse, and everyone in his life just accepts it. He said he'll let me win the credit card fight a little more in general when it's just us, but still wants to pay even if I won't let him. But if we're double dating, split every time. He said that made sense to him. We agreed the kids didn't need to see Daddy paying for their uncle all the time, so we agreed no more dessert in the restaurant. We'll always go somewhere else, and I'll always pay for everyone's dessert. Long and short is an open, honest, long conversation got to the root of it. He is going to be more sensitive to perception around outsiders, but the just us stuff is going to be something I have to accept. He also made sure I understood that never once that I've invited myself over his house, or out for dinner, or to play golf that he thought I was doing so for a freebie. He pointed out a couple of people who certainly do and made clear it's not the same, and he would call me on it in a second. That was comforting. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.